Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Misfit podcast. Sort of, kind of. We're still going to bring you information every week. We just keep calling it a podcast, so that's where we're at. It is time for Cycle 4, though. So we were just talking about how Cycle 1 was coming and the season was starting, and then I went to sleep and woke up, and Cycle 4 is here. So how did that happen? I don't know.
Slept for so long.
I wish I did. I wish I did.
You wrote so much programming in your sleep?
That's basically what I do these days. Can write it in my sleep. So we're going to give you guys the rundown real quick. It's only a 4-week cycle. It's very short. It'll lead us right into the open and the open programming, which we bring you guys to fit workouts in, keep your training going while the open's going on. We'll have that, of course. But this is sort of the open prep month, and we'll take you through what we're looking for. Before we get into it, who wants to take it over?
sharpentheaxeco.com. Click on the events tab.
Gimme.
You will find Open Prep Camp here at Misfit HQ, February 2nd and 3rd. Confirmed guests: Travis Williams, China Cho, Cody Mooney, Paige Semenza.
Wow.
There will be others around.
Hunter Wood.
Wow.
I'm going to be in Miami.
The house. I'm going to send him down to Miami. We got an all-star crew. Everybody's going to be getting ready for the open. What does that mean for you guys? It means lots of gymnastics work, cycling a barbell, going into the pain cave, talking about workout strategy as opposed to just good old-fashioned KTB. So really starting to fine-tune for the season. February 2nd and 3rd, sharpentheaxeco.com.
It's going to be a good time.
Click on the events tab. Come join us.
Super Bowl party.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, Super Bowl party on the 3rd. And my Bears prediction is down the drain. I actually didn't even believe my prediction. I was just trying to be like if I called it, told you.
I picked the 2 1 seeds that both on buys, so I'm good to go for now.
One more week.
Ducks are still in it.
Yeah, the Ducks are still
Go Ducks.
still very mighty.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just tear through this. It's pretty straightforward. A lot of it's actually similar to last year. So if people, most of you coming back around for Cycle 4 again with us, a lot of the concepts are similar, but we're tightening things up a little bit. And as an example of that, one of the things we did last year and we're bringing back this year are the back squat die sets, which I know everyone had a great time with.
Yeah.
It was quite a mission. I guess it was like exploration for people, like figuring out where their capacity lies at actual heavy weight, like where they're going to push. The 5x5 kind of gets you ready for this because that 5 rep range, you know what that is. You know what your 5 rep max is, give or take, on any given day. So then when we start asking for last year, what was 8 to 15 reps, this year we're tightening it up to 8 to 12 reps to try to keep that range a little more specific. Hopefully you can figure out how to make that jump from your 5 rep to your 8 to 12 rep max. And I'm sure you have some ideas.
Guess somewhere around 90% of that 5 rep max that you got to, like, I would guess somewhere in that range.
Well, the problem here is that CrossFitters don't make sense when it comes to the traditional percentages. You have someone who, like, high end has a really tough time that can just squeak out a crazy amount of reps. And now there's obviously the hybrids that do both, but trying to find this, if you are getting 13, 14, 15, all the way up, and I mean, I think people were getting the high 20s last year. You're nowhere near where it needs to be. It should start to be very challenging in that 7 to 8 range,
right. And
then that's when you start eking them out. What I don't want to do though is set the stage for someone to get less reps with a lower weight because they've got it in their head, I'm doing a set of 12. Yeah. You just have to, while you're warming up, really try to evaluate where you're going. And like the die sets themselves, so much of this is information gathering, like for your season, for what you're capable of, whether that's actually knowing that you can do whatever, 12 back squats at 315 pounds, or, you know, going through that mental side of it. Because the science right now is telling us that you get stronger and you add muscle regardless of reps and sets.
Right.
Like if you lift weights, you get stronger and you add muscle mass. Like the whole hypertrophy versus this versus that is sort of being thrown out the window, and the nuance now becomes more sport related. Like it's about what are you actually accomplishing and how does that translate over to a Metcon. So
yeah, it's funny how that works. You can get strong by doing more than 3 sets of 3 or 5 reps. It's weird how that works, but for me, I think the mentality side is the biggest part of this squat set. Is there so many opportunities that are going to happen in those 5 weeks of the open where you want to be able to do one more rep. This is essentially training for that. You teach yourself that you can do an additional rep, or you can grind through maybe the last 15 seconds of a workout where normally you'd want to come off the toe to bar or something, or take a break between sets of muscle ups, you now know that you can send it and go for an extra rep.
But on the flip side of doing an extra rep, you also might be able to do more weight than you thought as well.
Correct.
So there's a balance there of both sides of that. It's not only the weight you choose, can you do an extra rep in that, figure out how to grind that out, but maybe the weight you chose wasn't actually the correct weight, and you might need to go up 10, 15 pounds to get your your correct range and effort.
And we get that guidance last year. Like if you didn't hit X reps, go down. If you hit the same, if you hit this range, try again, try to beat your score. Right. And if you get like over 15, go up. So we give that guidance last year. I assume we'll be doing the same thing again this year.
Sure. That'll be there again this year. Moving on from the back squat, we actually have a front squat piece that you'll be doing all 4 weeks. And the purpose of this is to kind of test yourself in a way and train yourself to need as little rest as possible to recover from kind of a higher output. Now, for example, the first week of the front squat cycle is 5 sets of 8 at 70%, which isn't extreme. It's something that people should not have an issue doing, but you have to rack and unrack at each set, and the rest is as little as possible. So you have to be able to hit your sets of 8, but you have to be able to be the one who judges and gauges when you go and unrack the bar again and go for 8 more reps. So essentially it's for time. It's 5 sets of 8 for time at 70%. But now you have to know yourself really well as an athlete as to when you're going to pick the bar back up and go for it. So I think the first week intentionally it's very doable. I think everyone's going to be able to kind of cruise through it. But of course, I'm not going to make it that easy for all 4 weeks. The percentages will go up as the rep range drops. Then you'll have a real challenge to figure out kind of when you want to go again for that heavy.
And that just reminds me of, if you think about the rep range, it reminds me of how terrible Elizabeth is. And you're at whatever it is, 115, 135 pounds. Right. Like, when you put it in the like realm of a strength session, that's not a high weight, but think about that leg pump. You don't get the ring dip rest. You get nothing. You just get to stand there and be like, oh, I guess I should go again.
Yeah. So that's really based on feel, and hopefully that teaches somebody, like you said, when to pick the bar back up for a set, or when they're going to go for another heavy squat clean or whatever that recovery window is. Hopefully that shrinks over a month. It may or may not, but at the very least, it'll give you some volume in front squat, and it will teach you something about where you're actually at when it comes time to compete. So pretty straightforward there. We'll have some deadlifts, mostly heavy in the heavier range, but there'll be sumo deadlifts. Again, perfect, beautiful reps. No need to bounce, none of that. Just trying to get some pulling volume in.
Trying to get stronger?
Yeah, just a little bit. I don't know how much stronger you're going to get in 4 weeks, but at least your central nervous system will be primed to pull something heavy in the open if it comes up. And that's really all we can ask at this point. The Oli lifting, I took a kind of a creative spin on this. I thought this would be kind of interesting. I'm gonna give it to Hunter once I kind of give the example, and I want him to kind of break down how he thinks this would help an athlete prepare for the open. So, for example, the first week of the Oli, we're going to squat snatch. And again, it's going to be against the clock. So for time, you're going to complete 20 snatches at 70% of your 1 rep max, and you're going to have a 3-minute rest window. 15 snatches at 75%, then you're going to have a 3-minute rest. 10 snatches at 80%, 1 minute rest. And that's basically your lift. And you can do power, squat, mix of both, whatever you need to do to get it done. But you're going to base the 1 rep off your full snatch, so off your squat snatch.
To me, that like the immediate thought is that open workout where it's like 40 burpees, 30 snatches, 30 burpees, 30 snatches.
Interesting, because they'll be testing that too.
Yep. That's where I thought of it. It's just like that. You got to find that point where maybe you start power snatching, power cleaning, if that's the lift or whatever. And at what point do you need to transition to the squat, to the full lift? Do you wait until you fail the power snatch, or do you squat snatch beforehand? And the other thing is, it also is just how well can you stay over the bar? Are you taking a step back between every single rep, or are you staying on top of it, getting your hands back on and immediately picking that up? Do you have the discipline to not, take a step back and, stay over the bar? So.
Yes. Anyone else?
Is that the correct answer?
Yeah, there's no wrong answer. I just wanted to know your opinion on it.
Can these be touch and go? Or are you looking for singles the whole time?
They can be.
Asking for a friend.
These people are going to definitely ask. That's going to be probably the first topic.
They can be. So yes, I mean, what I like about this is because the volume is fairly significant, but the percentages are on the safer side. It allows for a whole bunch of things. If you need to practice your power snatch, you can practice your power snatch. If you really think touch and go is smart, you could play with a touch and go set to open up. If you need to be more consistent with your squat snatch and singles and having that be repeatable, you can work on that. So you have all that going for you. And I think the consistency in that window of 70 to 90%, I think is super important this time of year. The 1 rep max, yeah, we're going to possibly be able to play with that, but I really think that the volume of being able to move a bar the same way from rep 1 to rep whatever is more important than even mixing styles. Yeah. And if you want to mix styles because you want to get the sort of stimulus of being out of breath or getting that kind of like that pump and then you have to continue to move, that's fine too. So what this does is it affords you a bunch of opportunities to find a way to put yourself in sort of a deficit, we'll say, in what you're good at, and then work your way out of it by staying smooth.
I was going to say almost every single open year or qualifier year, they've had some type of workout where, you know, you need to prove that you're fit enough to get to the heavyweights, but then can you move the heavyweights over and over again? And this is like literally
it's a way to
that's
build
what
to
this
that.
is. This is way to practice the consistency that you'll need to be able to move, like you said, 70, 90% under fatigue, because that's what we see at the highest level. It separates someone from squeaking into a CrossFit Games qualifying position or qualifying for a qualifier is literally that. Can they move that high percentage?
The other thing is that that's a percentage. It starts at a percentage that, yeah, you could probably pull with maybe some suboptimal form off the floor, but it does not benefit you to be, you know, to have that high hip position or, you know, pulling from anything less than an ideal position from the start, because you're obviously going to need to do that when it gets to that 80, 85%. And 70% to me is not light enough where you should be lazy about your setup. You should be deliberately setting up for each and every rep. Exactly.
You gain nothing from it.
This is like a natural progression from the singles that have been going on in cycle 3, because as a coach, you watch those sessions and you see, you know, maybe somebody likes to do the like no foot movement power snatch where they feel that like snap in the movement and it feels good, but then it becomes like a barrier. It's like, I can't move this weight anymore, or I'm running all over the gym. So I guess from a coaching standpoint, it is kind of nice for an athlete to know where that line is and when they have to switch over. And athletes need to be able to do that, because you're going to have workouts that you see a certain way. And like the chest to bar and bar muscle ups that screwed everybody at the games last year. I mean, people looked at that on paper and were like, I'm good to go.
Right.
And it's like, no, you're not.
Fell apart. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you're in a workout and you've been doing the butt high up in the air, no foot movement, any of that stuff, you need to know, like, maybe I do go to a bottoms up start. Maybe I do sacrifice, you know, my legs because it's X workout and I am going to squat snatch or whatever. There's so many things when you're watching that and you're like, this is not, you're not performing to your best of your ability because you started with one strategy and had no way to adjust. You're like, why am I chasing the bar all over the gym? It's like, well, you always move your feet if it's a strength session, so start moving your damn feet, like that kind of thing. So
when you practice that, you don't know another way. Your body, when it gets to a certain point, your body's just under fatigue. It's just doing what it's been taught to do. So even if you're like, oh, I have to keep my chest a little higher, my butt down, you go and set up, you immediately will pull right back in the same position. You will not have that.
Yeah, there's some of your habits.
You won't have it when you need it if you practice that way when you're lifting. So
you just have to be okay with the tortoise and the hare scenario.
Yeah, exactly right.
We have some athletes that are not okay with that. And, you know, sometimes you really do only lose by 8 seconds, but you still lose.
Yep.
Like in that beginning, it's like, nice job doing Randy at the beginning, but.
And if you try to race through this piece, like you can look at it and be like, okay, 70%, not a big deal for 20 reps, but it's 45 snatches at over 70% of your 1 rep. That's a significant amount of snatch volume, whether you're power snatching or squat snatching. It's significant amount of time to move a barbell at that load for you. So, yeah, I think the tortoise and the hare is a pretty good way to describe it. The other way we're going to be spending our time training the Olympic lifts will be from we're going to build to a heavy single on both the snatch and the clean to allow you guys to actually get up to that 90% range if that's where you're feeling that day. And then we're going to do some work from the hang. So you're going to take 70% of your snatch or clean from the hang, and you're actually going to do 3 max sets. And each time you do a max set, you'll take, depending on, there'll be a prescribed number of burpees that go with that. Yeah, burpees and Olympic lifting. Weird, I know. So let's say Hunter takes his squat clean. His max is 200 pounds. That's pretty good. 200 pound max on his squat clean. And we prescribe 70%. Can you do that math real quick?
70.
Oh, come on.
140.
Very good.
So
140. And he hits 140 for, we'll say, he gets 12 reps from the hang.
So that percentage work is based on the heavy that you just found, not your actual...
No, your 1 rep.
Okay.
So from your squat clean, yeah. And so he hits 12 reps. The prescription's 40 burpees after the set. He's going to take 12 minus the 40, and he's going to do 28 bar facing burpees as slow or as fast as he wants to go, being consistent and knowing that that is his rest period. So if he wants to make them a steady crawl to make sure he can move again for the
I could be the demo video for this.
You really could.
I could be the demo video for the slowest fucking burpees you've ever seen.
And if you feel real comfortable moving the bar and it's one of your stronger suits, you can try to crush those burpees, take a couple deep breaths, and then go for another set. And this can be more of a conditioning style piece, or it can be more of a lifting style piece, depending on how you want to approach it. The burpees are there because rarely do we let you guys compete and do things where you're just hanging out. It's never going to happen, and it probably won't happen again. So you need to find a way to be able to move steadily, basically at all times, and recover one system to the other. And so burpees are the way we're going to do it this time. Last cycle, it was a bike or a machine or something that you had to be good at. Now you have to actively move a little more, and it's a little more CrossFit-y. And I think it's something that you can plan to see, just like in the open retest that you will see for sure this cycle, the burpee and snatch from 2013.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's very similar to that. So that'll go back and forth between hang cleans and hang snatches, and the prescription will change, percentages will change, number of burpees will change, number of rounds will change based on what we're looking to see. And that's about the gist of the lifting this cycle. So any other thoughts on that?
I just think that
keep lifting weights.
We say this every year, so I apologize if you've heard it for the 7th time, but people take very simple movements for granted and don't worry about the efficiency, whether it's all the way back to running or out to burpees. And if you don't think that burpee efficiency is important, do some push-ups during this piece here and go back to your barbell and try, as opposed to using your hips. You're going to notice a huge difference. So it just gives you an opportunity, if you know it's not for time, to actually work on the efficiency of, closing your hip and not doing it wrong.
And you're right. It's not for time. Says that very clearly. So in case I didn't explain that right, it is not for time. So the Metcons are pretty straightforward, at least I'll just say the conditioning pieces. I'm going to sum them up quickly. You're going to see some intervals. They're going to be CrossFit style, open style intervals. Like the weights are going to be things that you guys can crush for the most part. Yeah, there'll be some heavy stuff sprinkled in there, but the focus is open preps. You'll see a lot of that. You're going to have a retest of an old open WOD once a week. And then the rest of the time, you'll be just doing that traditional, nasty couplet, triplet style CrossFit to get prepared for the open. Not a lot to speak of when it comes to that. There's nothing super tricky in there. It's all things that we could expect to see. I mean, there's some dumbbell work. There's a little bit of kettlebell work, even though that's kind of not what we expect to see. But there's all the classic movements that we need to train, make sure we're confident with, and that if we suck at them, let's take a minute to actually practice the efficiency side of it and improve before we throw ourselves into a deep, terrible, sweaty workout. So something to keep in mind. The bitch work, pretty straightforward. There'll be 2 days of multi-machine, so I don't just want somebody to be comfortable on just the rower, just the runner.
That's a sensitive topic because we just did the bike row yesterday.
That's true.
That's a sensitive topic right now.
This will be out of there. By the time they see this, though, it'll be long out of their mind. I hope. I
don't know.
I hope.
been thinking about that workout for like 2 weeks. But when you do
that, like just a quick pump for that, it's great because you can convince yourself to go hard that second time, just based on this shift of even though your body has no power output left in it, you search for it, as opposed to being like, I suck, I can't do this. If you had to stay on the bike for that extra 15 to 20 seconds, you wouldn't go as hard as you did on the rower. No chance. But for some reason, your body's like, yeah, this looks fun. Let's try this next machine. I guess.
It's a lot of fun.
Something like that.
Yeah. We'll see that a mix of sprinting, longer pieces, whatever. We'll see the mix of machines or mix of monostructural movements twice a week. The bitch gymnastics is going to come back. So a monostructural piece with, defined gymnastic sets in there to make sure that you can do those under fatigue. We'll have a classic bitch work day, which is basically, the ones you see where you're running 600-meter repeats or 400-meter repeats, or you're biking on the assault bike or the C2, just really middle distance or middle time domain, repeatable sets. And then we will have one long piece a week. The focus is not so much on running for the first time in the year. We've had a lot of focus on longer running, which I think has paid dividends for quite a few athletes. But now, because we're being a little more sport specific to our sport for this cycle, and knowing that the open, well, I don't know anything anymore, but I have to assume the open still will not incorporate running in any way, shape, or form. other than some sort of shuttle up and down your gym if they want to get real creative.
Which is not running, because I like that.
It's true. It's definitely not running. It's not the same. So being more comfortable on the rower
shuttle.
Yeah, you could, but it's different. It's
that helps people with power, because you can make that turnaround quicker and run a few steps and then just slog your way across the gym for the rest of it.
They never, unless you have a lot of space, they never really seem to be a big difference maker, like as opposed to running a 400, which can separate people by upwards of 30 seconds, depending on who you are. So more time on the rower and other machines that kind of translate over into things we expect to see in the open. And that's pretty much bitch work in a nutshell. The extras, I don't think there's a lot to say here. You're going to have some gymnastic sets, very specific to the open, specific sets of toes to bar with, unbroken sets with some rest, pull-ups, handstand push-ups, things like that. Again, with unbroken prescriptions so that you guys can start to build that capacity, that endurance over a certain amount of time. We have more bench pressing and strict pressing and lunging. We've been using a lot of that combo back and forth through the whole year. Supersetting them at this point so that you go back and forth between a set of pressing, a set of lunging, keeping that rest to a minimum, hopefully allowing you guys to do very different things so that you don't need to build in a ton of rest there. And then we have some more advanced gymnastic stuff built in here, rope climbs, pegboards, things like that, because even though we don't have regionals to shoot for after this, we still have sanctionals that people are doing that. Yeah. So those who are following this, to a T, the full blog, not hatchet version, we expect that you're going to be competing at a high level at some point this year. So you still have to get a dose of that in there, at least here and there.
I was just looking at this and I was actually going to ask you a question, because one thing I thought that was pretty interesting is that if you look at days 2 and 3, the mandatory work, the extra pieces seem to be pretty high level.
Yes.
And we do know that there's a great span of athletes that follow our blog. It's not just people who are games hopefuls, sanctional hopefuls, people who just want to do it.
Yep.
I look at these 2 pieces on days 2 and 3.
You're looking at week 1 specifically?
Week 1, for example, I see the freestanding handstand holds and some sandbag stuff, and then I look at the next 2, which are days 4 and 5, and I see more of open style movements.
Yes.
So I would just throw this out there personally. If I was coaching someone who was really concerned with, trying to do their best in the open, even if they don't have goals of going past the open, potentially maybe substituting out these 2 pieces for those higher skill ones, if that's maybe your level, just as a means of getting yourself prepared for the open. Because as I see it, if you look at days 4 and 5, those
is this a hidden plug for hatchet?
Maybe, but okay. I was just going to say it may make more sense to have that be your mandatory or extra piece rather than the more advanced ones.
So that is a good point, and depending on who you are, you could do that. But also depending on who you are, having 3 extra sets of a push press at 115 as one of the non-mandatory, and doing some sets of muscle ups isn't a super huge amount to add on the top. Whereas I think the people who are following the actual blog that are high level, in order to, let's say, take something like a handstand walk in the open, for instance, if these people following the blog want that shot, the top 20, I know it's outrageously difficult to get to, but this is their training opportunity to be able to do that. I want somebody to be cycling shoulder taps freestanding fast, so that when it comes to walking across a room, it's easier. They shift their weight back and forth faster, and they're able to walk faster. And if they cut 5 seconds off a handstand walk, that is significant compared to doing a couple extra sets of push press or something else like that. So if this was hatchet, I would flip it exactly like you said. If I need the fundamentals a little more, that's exactly right. You would have the other 2 pieces mandatory, and the ones above it would be the optional ones. But because I need somebody who, I've wrote this for somebody who would be, in the past going to regionals or going to a high level sanctional event or trying to qualify through the open, these are the sort of things I think that can teach someone how to be half a step above the next person. So with that mindset, that's sort of how I write this stuff, because again, there isn't an open prep cycle that is additional to this. This is what I have to get someone to be top 20 in the world. So that's how I have to approach it. So if you were coaching an athlete who is clearly not getting top 20 in the world, but they're trying to move from 1,000 to 500, then yes, you would definitely do that flip. And if that applies to them out there, you watching, you can do that as well.
That was really my whole point with this, is just as a word of caution, don't get caught up in the sexy movements, because everyone's doing bench press, everyone's doing sandbag, and you know that you suck at muscle ups, and guess what? You're not going to see see
the moral of the story is know yourself.
Exactly.
And choose your program accordingly.
Exactly. That's all I was trying to make with that point, is that if you're someone who, you're really looking to maximize your amount of time in the training in the gym, and you have to choose between some sandbag cleans and, maybe your handstand push-ups, which one's going to be in the open?
No brainer.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if you're the type of athlete, even at the high level where the handstand push-up has been the issue in the past, that is exactly what you need to do. You can put the sandbag away till, the open's done, right? But yeah, the ones that specifically we want to see get to the games through this very difficult way of qualifying, I have to just try to give them every opportunity. And a lot of them, not all of them, because we don't ever really prescribe this, but a few people we know of can handle the full volume of the blog, and they do that regularly. So they're going to get all those pieces anyway at the highest level.
Yep.
The vast majority of people cannot handle the full volume correctly. They need to do hatchet, or need to know how to scale this back correctly, and they need to know how to make good choices, just like you said. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's all I had for that. I was just wanted to put that word of caution out there. You know, don't get caught up in the sexy movements if you don't have work capacity.
No, don't ever question my programming again. Okay?
Whatever.
So you're fired. But anyway,
whatever.
Yeah.
That's what else is new.
I mean, no, that again, seriously, really good point. And what we always say is the blog is a template, right? So you have to be able to
make it your own,
make some self-assessment and make it your own, and scale and choose accordingly. So yeah, good things to think about. That, I think we covered basically everything they're going to have. Anything special in the warm-ups? No, nothing that you guys haven't seen 1,000 times before. Just make sure that you are actually warming up really well. One thing you can do to practice for the open is take the retest day or a second day during the week as well, and really take that warm-up a little more seriously. Like, I know that people say, oh, I warm up, but like, do you really get your heart rate up? Do you really move around through good range of motion? Do you really get your pull-ups ready to go? Do you really get your snatch ready? And then come back down and then prepare for the workout. Like, a lot of times I think we take that for granted. Practice that a time or two each week for the next 4 weeks so that you really get super warm. Like, I would say I won't say most in here, but most of the people we train, the second piece is usually the most successful piece of the day, because they've been all the way up, they've moved at a high level, their intensity's been somewhat high, they breathe heavy, their joints are all oiled up, like things are moving well, they're ready to go. The second piece is usually more successful. If you go into one of these retest pieces or a really tough Metcon cold, like, don't expect to get much out of it. So I think
as much as you could.
Yeah,
you could get some of that. You'd probably get a lot more if you actually.
And I just wish people took it a little more serious, like you would take the open WOD serious, to the fact that people will warm up for an hour, make that the only piece of the day, and then go home, go to bed. Like, come on, you don't need to do that. So if you're going to take it that serious, take your training that serious and practice getting ready for those open pieces as they come out. Because
that first heart rate spike in the primer is not fun, but you'd rather have it there than in round one of a 20-minute AMRAP in the open, you know?
No question about it. You will literally do this throughout the remainder of the workout if you treat it that way. So, I mean, that's cycle 4. It's open prep. We've torn through this. There isn't a lot of crazy new stuff. It's very focused training. The volume's appropriate. The pieces are very straightforward. It's up to you to kind of put your head down, focus on the things you need to work on, and try to make noticeable change over only 4 weeks. There's no test. There's no retest. 4 weeks straight into the open.
The last thing that I wanted to bring up is just the idea of how much data you get every single day in the gym, and you can choose whether to let it float away out of your memory and into the abyss, or actually realize that the person who has the most information about how you should attack a workout or what your capabilities are is you.
Yep.
So going like full nerd mode in cycle 4, like the girl in your class that had that crazy pen thing, she had every color and every marker, and she made you look terrible in class. She knew every answer to every question, and you're in the back like picking your nose and like whatever. Like, be that person during cycle 4. Write down every. I mean, I haven't not done it. I don't know if every example, but
I might have been.
Be that person during cycle 4. Write down. Not just like, I see a lot of people like have that idea of they have that gym book and they literally write 21:15:9 blah blah blah, here's my time.
Right.
That doesn't really matter that much.
Especially if you don't know how you got there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what does this combination do to you? Like, when something comes up in the open and you go, oh no, how am I going to attack this? Like, I guarantee it was in your programming. That combination of those 2 things or those 3 things always pop up throughout the course of the year. And if an athlete will take the time to make a note or have a meaningful conversation with someone about it so that it sticks in their memory, you'll know what to do. And then you won't have to, again, hope that you can find a video with gimmicks during the open to tell you how to do the Metcon. Like, really sink into some like note taking and conversations. And like, it happens here a lot. The athletes sit around for 5 or 10 minutes after and, hey, you remember on your 7th bar muscle up? And like, it seems like they're being boring and like, oh, you talk about something else, but like, they're into that information.
They also film themselves regularly and then watch their workout again the whole thing, and they'll see, like, they'll find things that they didn't even realize were happening in the workout. So
it's always funny to watch people like start strategizing when an open workout gets announced. Just like, oh, I think I'm going to do singles on my chest to bar pull-ups. Just like why would you didn't do that one time throughout the entire training year, and you watched a quick tip video on YouTube that said that's the smartest strategy.
But if you didn't train hard enough to get where you want to, the only chance you have is that Space Jam, the water.
This is my year. I'm telling you, this is the year. Use the tricks. This is going to be the year.
Yep.
All right. I know you got some tips for the masters too.
Yep.
Not that they're second-class citizens by any means, but they have a very specific, different set of instructions, which is why we don't talk about them in the blog stuff. Yeah. So we'll let you take it away and bounce some stuff off us, because I know you have some other ways that you want them to approach things leading into the open, which is very valuable.
Yeah. So I took a pretty hard look at cycles 2 and 3, and when writing cycle 4, made a pretty concerted effort to track the amount of mandatory squatting, pulling, pushing, especially overhead, understanding that is what CrossFit is. Like, you are going to pull, you're going to squat, you're going to put stuff overhead, but trying to just kind of moderate that volume to something manageable and repeatable throughout the whole cycle. The other note that I have is for the age division modification. That is not just for 55 plus or 14 and younger athletes. Like, that is, it's a perfectly acceptable modification to workouts that may be a little bit out of your realm to start. They're written not specifically with that age group in mind, but also as kind of like a modification to that workout. So
I regularly use that for my athletes. I have a couple of master athletes that I work with, and I regularly use a mix of both the, 40 plus qualifier and then the 55 plus, just based on how much sense it makes for you. Like, if you look at a piece and you're gonna be standing around, like, it's not worth trying to do the RX Masters workout. Go to the other one.
Yeah, the modifications are written based on previous open, like kind of the open standards, as well as just like observations that we've made, but it is not exclusively for those older, much older or much younger athletes. So just keep that in mind. But going through kind of each piece, the only thing I'll say about the warm-ups is I've got a handful of static gymnastics work in there, whether it's holding at the top of a ring, the ring support, or an L-sit kind of thing. I think that's, instead of adding that as accessory work, I think that's a good way to serve as a warm-up and kind of sneak in some of that static volume without, it doesn't require a whole lot of warming up to do.
You steal that from my hatchet class?
Maybe.
Son of a gun.
Osmosis.
to that wall.
The strength work. So there's the one mandatory strength piece this cycle. It's box squatting. So you'll start with some speed box squat and then be able to build up to a heavy single, double, and triple box squat, basically designed to get you to move fast and then allow you to actually load your central nervous system without adding too much squatting to the overall program.
I actually like this with the amount of squatting that people do typically in preparation for the open with the deeper range of motion. I know some masters have issues with the fuller range of motion. You know what I mean? The very bottom position. I actually like the loading with the box squat and giving them an opportunity to, like you said, kind of almost overload without making them go through some very rusty, questionable ranges of motion. Like it sets a precedence and makes it very doable.
And with the regular blog, we've seen people improve their normal back squat really well after box squatting, and there's still opportunities in the Olympic weightlifting that you're gonna snatch and clean and jerk. So that's just kind of how I balance that out. And then some optional a pressing complex that we actually did a few years back that I kind of revamped just a little bit for those who need the help or work pressing, and then alternating between sumo and conventional deadlift every other week. So nothing too crazy there. The Olympic weightlifting, both days are mandatory. One is similar to the blog where you're going to work up to a heavy either power snatch or power clean and push jerk, and then you're going to take 50 to 55% of your known power clean and power snatch and go for max reps for 2 sets. Basically, again, allowing you to go heavy, get not like max out each time, but get that heavy stimulus and then cycle some reps.
This is touch and go?
Those jerks, yes. Yep. touch and go sets of power clean and push jerk and power snatch. The workouts, as Seth said, pretty standard workouts. Metcon Monday is going to consist of two workouts, basically, a Metcon and then an interval piece, and then a mandatory mobility piece. And this is not to say that most masters can't handle that third Metcon Monday piece that we typically see on the blog, but that mobility piece is meant to set you up for the remainder of the week. If you get smashed on Monday, like your whole week is gone to shit. So,
which is what happens to even the best of them.
Yeah. Like even, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
So you've got that. We'll also be doing the same open retest workout as Hatchet and the blog, which I think will be kind of cool. So the whole community will be doing that retest, the open retest on day 2. There are a handful of Metcons where there is a heavy kind of like find a 1 rep max lift after the Metcon, kind of open workout style. So those are mixed in there. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Typical standard Metcons. Intervals, honestly, really nothing unique to say about those. They're CrossFit interval
exercise and rest.
Yeah, you do exercise and rest.
It's not a bad thing to not have something unique to say, because you don't got to reinvent the wheel by any means.
Yeah, there has been no wheel reinvention.
Perfect. It's not the right time of year to do it anyway.
The bitch work, a mix of long and the short sprinty work. There is one mandatory long day per week, so there will be some like kind of aerobic work, and then nestled in the bitch work on day 5 is nestled just snuck in there is an age group online qualifier retest piece. So it is not mandatory and is really meant for those who are very confident that they're going to make it through the open and go to the online qualifier or beyond that. Just because of the volume and the intensity of those pieces, I don't really see it benefiting too many other people to stack that kind of volume.
Didn't they get rid of that? Isn't the open have nothing to do with the age online qualifier?
Which is a whole topic I want to talk about on a different day, because it's very interesting the way you're going to have to approach the open now. I think it's really cool.
But I still wanted to have those workouts in there as retest piece, just to kind of get a gauge from where you're at and where you were, if you are.
Sounds more important
in that. Yeah,
that's the whole thing now. It's a whole competition. Yeah,
in that category. So, and then extra work, 2 mandatory mobility pieces per week. Do more, but I'm making you do 2, but do more. And that's pretty much it for masters.
Boom.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, but it's less than the blog.
That's
so
a good
you can't
thing.
fire me.
Almost everybody needs less than the blog. So, okay. Any last thoughts? Obviously, we'll be revisiting this whole open prep topic as we get to the last week or so of this, and we start to talk about how to actually prepare mentally, physically for the open as it approaches. We're a couple days away there, and we'll get into a whole slew of strategy and other things.
We'll really dig into it February 2nd and 3rd at Misfit HQ, Portland, Maine.
We'll probably talk about things we'll never talk about again during that weekend.
True.
So if you
it actually is true. It's a joke, but it is true. We can't put everything out there.
No, the camps will be legendary as always.
We can have 2 open prep camps this year.
Yes.
Oh, wow. But the most important one is going to be February 2nd and 3rd.
Under the events tab at Sharpen the Axe.
That's the most important one. The other one won't be that good till this one goes by.
That'll be awesome.
It'll be pretty good.
Maybe the one in October will be more enticing when it's like 12 degrees warmer.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Nope.
All right.
It's great here right now. It's great.
We're
that's
right now.
Cycle 4. That's it. It's coming up. Prepare. We'll see you guys soon.